is Dr. April Darley,
And this is Jen Merkel.
and we're Spiritual Basics Podcast.
Yay!
Yay! Welcome to our second show. Hopefully, you guys all enjoyed the first one. We did.
It was so much fun.
Mm.
So this week we are going to be talking about the clairs, and what that basically, the clairs are different types of psychic abilities. So there's like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. Those are the main four, but there are others. This week, there's so much to talk about. We decided to break it up into 2 episodes. So part 1 is this week. We'll be talking about clairvoyance and clairsentience. So April is going to tell us about clairvoyance. So April, take it away.
Well, Jen, the clairs are one of my favorite subjects to talk about. I think you and I both. We said we could talk about them in our sleep, nonstop, 24/7. And the reason I love it is because we started this podcast because we want to teach foundational information. And there's so many of my patients that came in and they knew they were intuitive, but they didn't really know what that meant sometimes. And that
Right.
that everybody's got different gifts. And until, I was educating my patients about the clairs, something clicked for them. And so that's what we want to do here.
Right. And something else too, before you get started about the clairs that I think is important to note is that they do work with each other and often overlap. So like you might think, for example, like for me, I had done an exercise on clairsentience, but actually it was my claircognizance coming through, which is clairknowing. Right. So I thought it was something I was touching, but it was really my clairknowing that was come through. But really, they all work together in different ways, and we'll go into that a little bit next time. But anyway, just keep that in mind. Nothing is, just like everything spiritual, it's all gray. There's no black and white.
Right. And as we go through this series, if you feel like you have more than one clair, you're right. Because you may have, I think we kind of all have these clairs.
Exactly. I think just to different degrees. Like you have a couple that are very strong for you, and then some that are a little bit weaker or that you just don't lean on as much because they're not as strong.
Right. So clairvoyance, I chose to talk about because it is probably my strongest clair. And so I just wanted to let people know what that is. And clairvoyance, the term itself means clear seeing. And it's not necessarily with your outer eye, although that may happen, but that clear seeing tends to be with your inner eye and correspond to your brow chakra. So if you're aware of chakras at all, it's sort of that right in the middle of your forehead, between your eyebrows, that little area there.
Also known as the third eye or the 6th chakra.
Yes. So in this clear vision, it's this clear sight, it may manifest in a number of ways. You can have some of these or all of these. And as we talk about the clairs, they're sort of like a muscle. So you can develop this muscle by doing exercises that Jen and I are going to give you in a little bit. But clear seeing, this means you're going to see something with your inner or outer eye. And that something could be angels, ghosts, flashes of light on the corner of your vision, where if you turn your head real fast, it's gone. You can also see shadows that way. Some people can see auras, which are different colors, which represent people's energy fields. Or if you've ever taken a picture and noticed there's a colored circle in the picture, that also tends to fall under clairvoyance. But you can also see signs. I think it's really common that most people see repeating numbers, or a lot of people do anyway, repeating numbers. And just seeing something visual, like a feather or a penny, just seeing some sort of repeating animal. It tends to be something that's repeating because spirit likes to know that you're getting the message. And it can be something that you pay attention to. So if you keep seeing elephants everywhere, that's kind of a sign for you. Maybe you had a loved one that passed over that loved elephants, or maybe that's an extra special message for you. And you might want to Google, what does an elephant stand for? But these are all things that fall into the realm of clairvoyance. You can also have predictions or visions about the future, and that could be in a prophetic dream as well. Once again, you may not have all of these things, and there might be one or two things that really stand out for you. For me, I don't necessarily have prophetic dreams or visions about the future as much. I mean, I do get a little bit. So I do get little flashes of things. And when I'm working with people, I may see things with my inner eye. And I have seen flashes of light and ghosts as well, which has been particularly interesting. But I am not one of those people that, do you remember the 3D pictures that were all the rage in the 90s?
The magic eye?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I could not see them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a little. So I can't see auras either. So you're gonna have some of these, but not all of these. But there are some things that you can do to strengthen that. So I wanted to give you a couple of exercises. And this first one, it uses a deck of cards. And you can actually use this exercise for several of the clairs, not just clairvoyance. But I remember doing this on an airplane when I was first starting to exercise that third eye muscle. And I took a card from each suit, the clubs, spades, hearts, diamonds, and put them face up. And the rest of the card deck I kept face down, and I tried to see with my inner eye which card was going to go where. And it almost looked like a game of solitaire. And then once I had used the whole deck, I flipped it over. So you can start off small and just try to match the colors up. Black for black, red for red, right?
Yeah.
And as you progress, you can start to try to match the hearts with the hearts, the diamonds with the diamonds.
Yeah, that's actually a really great exercise. And I've tried that before, and it's pretty interesting because you can surprise yourself, because the law of averages says that it's going to be half and half, but you might just be surprised to see you've got most of them right. And by the way, when you're doing psychic exercises like that, if you get more than half right, then that's really good. That's a clear sign that you're definitely your intuition coming through.
For real. And celebrate that. Celebrate the victory.
Always got to do that, yes.
Don't be a perfectionist and get hung up that it wasn't all right. Celebrate the victories. But the thing with developing your clairvoyance is relaxing the mind. I can't stress how important this is. Relaxing the mind and believing what you see. Because if you try to second guess or doubt or downplay what you see, you're almost blocking that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's true with any of the clairs or just psychic abilities in general. And it's also one of the hardest things to do is to trust your own, what you're seeing, what you're feeling.
Right. So the next exercise does a little bit of both of that. It's about relaxing the mind plus trusting what you see. So this is actually how I meditate, but I lie flat down, or you can sit in a comfortable position, whatever's best for you. I put on a piece of instrumental music, and this is really important, no words. And then I just take some big deep breaths. I often will ask a question for my guides, angels, spirit, and I wait for the answer. And my mind will create a scene. Sometimes I'm at the beach, sometimes I'm in a forest, and the answers tend to come to me. But when you are trying to work out that clairvoyant muscle, also, it is about the visual details. So a third exercise you can do is look at an object, try to memorize every little feature about that object, close your eyes, and let your mind recreate that object. And then open your eyes to check and see how accurate you were. But relax. That's the biggest thing I can say. Relax and don't doubt, and just let your mind wander and create what it wants to.
Yeah, those are really excellent ideas. Really good exercises there for shows.
Yeah, and Jen is actually going to talk about the most common clair of all.
I think it's interesting too, before I go into that, clairvoyant, like the word clairvoyant, is so commonly used. Like if people like ask you, like if you say you're a psychic, people say, "Oh, you're clairvoyant," and it's almost like that's like an all-encompassing word, and it's really not. And like April said, clairsentience is actually the most common. So you can be really, really strong in a lot of things. Like for me personally, I have some clairvoyance, but it's definitely not my strongest. Although I will say that as I've developed my abilities, I surprised myself by when I learned more about clairvoyance that I'm more clairvoyant than I think. So it's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so clairsentience is clear feeling, because sentient means feeling. So it's the ability to feel something, either, physically, like with your body, with your hands or your feet or your skin or whatever. But it can also be like a feeling that you have about something. So it's all about feelings. So it's the ability to feel the physical and or emotional states of others. So that could be, spirits or objects. For example, mediums, they're clairsentient. They not only feel the presence of, loved ones who have passed, but they also are intuitive about it. And that's how it's a little bit different from empaths. You can be an empath, and that's when you take on the feelings of others. And all clairsentients basically are empathetic in that way, but you can be an empath and not get the intuitive information. And that's what makes you a clairsentient, is getting that information.
True. And as a medium, that's a great example of combining clairvoyance and clairsentience, because you might be seeing the spirits as well as feeling them.
Right. Exactly. So an example, there are quite a few examples actually of clairsentience. If you've ever entered a room, like an empty room, like maybe you walked into a conference room at work and you just could feel the energy and the tension, even though there's nobody else in that room, maybe there was an argument there before you got in there, or some kind of heated debate going on. Or if you've ever met somebody and you just get this feeling about them, like in your gut, you're like, I don't know, something about that guy I just don't like. And you can't really pinpoint what it is, but you definitely know there's something. And again, like April said, it's about trusting your intuition.
Right. It's that gut feeling. Exactly. Everybody's heard that phrase.
Yeah, getting the chills and goosebumps, or tingling of some sort. That's also clairsentience. And some people also can actually feel physical pain from others. You hear about like twins, one, they're across town from each other. One bumps the knee and the other one feels it. Well, it's kind of like a joke, but it's not really, because that's actually an example of clairsentience. And you don't have to be a twin to get that, get that feeling or have that happen. And, a lot of times you'll get that with healers where they will, be able to feel where, the person they're working on is in pain. That's definitely clairsentience. Another thing too is avoiding crowds. If you're one of those people that doesn't like crowds because you just get a bad feeling when you're in them, maybe there's a lot of mixed energies or a lot of confusion, a lot of, basically energy overload. That's, that shows that you're probably highly clairsentient. And for me personally, I am highly clairsentient, obviously. I am unable to watch horror movies because when that guy is getting his throat slit or, and even just like a regular action movie or any movie, even if someone's getting like a shot in their arm or something, I have to literally turn away. Or if I know somebody's going to get an axe soon, I close my eyes and turn away because I get this horrible physical sensation. I don't literally feel like I'm getting my throat slashed, but I definitely have that horrible energy surge, and I've learned to, look away. So if that's you, that is a good sign that you have high clairsentience.
Yes. That's true. I mean, I don't watch horror movies for a completely different reason. And because of the emotional release work I do, I tend to keep this down as one of my weaker clairs. I almost turn down the volume of it.
Yeah, you would have to, because as an empath, you would be taking on energy of others very easily. So you have to set a boundary.
Yes.
Or you could just, you definitely don't want to take on all the problems of all your patients.
Absolutely. If you'd like to learn about how to set boundaries, maybe we can talk about that in a different episode.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So a couple exercises you can try to help develop your clairsentience. First of all, meditation, like April mentioned, for clairvoyance, you can actually meditate and try to feel something. But when you're doing meditation, I would, like April said, go ahead and turn on some music that doesn't have voice, something instrumental, something relaxing, and just lay down and relax. But be intentional about what you want to do. For example, I did a meditation once where I wanted to just basically get in contact with my grandmother who had passed. And so I set that intention, and her energy came to me during the meditation. And, I could feel her love. I could feel her presence. So that's something that you might want to do. A loved one who has passed, or you could also do that with your angels. And so that's one of the exercises. Another thing you can do is an actual tactile exercise called, psychometry is also known. Clairtangency is another clair. Psychometry is a type of clairtangency, where you can hold an object and you get information intuitively on that object. So, for example, here's a great idea. If you have a friend that you're close to, you can ask that friend for a picture of somebody that you don't know, but that they know very well, or maybe an object, like something from one of their relatives, or something that you don't know, but someone they do. And hold on to that object and see what kind of information comes through, and go ahead and just let that friend know. And again, you have to trust that what you're saying is coming through. Just blurt it out. Just don't worry about trying to interpret anything. Just say, if you're holding something like a pocket watch, say, I see this man. He's kind of balding. He wears a checkered shirt all the time. Just whatever comes to mind, just blurt it out. And you'll probably be really surprised at how accurate you are. And then also you can do that with crystals. I like to do this. I did this a couple times where I have a whole bunch of crystals, because if you aren't yet, as you're getting your intuitive abilities, you will soon be a crystal hoarder, just like everybody, pretty much.
Especially, that's why I'm laughing, everybody, because when she said crystals,
and you might already have quite a collection. Anyway, so I just put a bunch of crystals together in a bowl, and I closed my eyes, and I just reached into that bowl and just pulled out a crystal without looking at it. And I had probably like 9 crystals in there. I pulled it out, and I could tell which crystal it was. But don't just sit there and say, oh, I know this is my amethyst. But think about what that crystal is making you feel. What are you feeling when you touch that? And with amethyst, is associated with the third eye. So maybe you can feel a tingling in your third eye, or whatever. But then when you're ready, open up your hand and see what's there. With those 9 crystals, I think I got 7 of them right. I think just 2 of them I got mixed up. I don't even know how, but you probably surprise yourself again with that.
Right.
One other exercise too that's kind of fun to do, again with a friend, a trusted friend, is to tune into their body and see if you can feel where they're feeling pain. Now, we can't be assuming that everybody's in some kind of pain, but for example, I might have April over, and we might do this exercise, and she has something clear, like she's got something going on. I don't know what it is, and I tune into her, and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling something in my knee, in my right knee, and she'll be like, oh my gosh, I just bumped it on the my door before coming here, or whatever. So that's just a little idea, couple ideas actually, to try and test your clairsentience as well as further develop them.
Right. An exercise that I like to have my patients do is I tell them that this is your superpower, clairsentience. And so many empaths, it's bothersome. I can't tell you the number of empaths I've heard that will say this is a curse for them. But if you play with it right, it can actually be your great strength, your early warning system, if you will. So I usually will tell them to tune into their own body, like you're doing exercise with a friend, and ask the question, where am I going to feel it if something feels really good? If I'm really excited, where do I feel it? And see where it lights up for you. Is it the heart? Is it butterflies in your stomach? And then ask yourself, if I were to encounter bad energy or something bad, what is that going to feel like? And is it a knotting in your stomach? Is it a pressure in your head? And when you know this good versus bad sort of dynamic, whenever you meet somebody, where do you feel it? Whenever you walk into a room, where do you feel it? And that can actually help guide you as like a yes-no sort of, almost like a pendulum. The whole sort of yes-no thing is where you feel it in your body. And you can begin, as you become more experienced in that, ask yourself questions. Is driving to work on a new way the best thing for me today? And where do you feel it? Is it a yes-no answer? Where is it? Do you get excited? Is it, nope, girl, that's not for you. Don't take chances today. The boss is coming. But use that for your own strength. You can really use that to empower yourself in so many ways. And fun fact on psychometry, so many empaths, if you don't know this, don't like to buy used merchandise. Right? We like to buy our things new because less people have touched it.
Yeah, because you can, take on the energy of others that way. Like when you go into an antique store, some people don't like to go into an antique store because of all those energies. Me personally, I love doing that. But I also know how to clear the energy from objects. And that'll actually, we'll talk about all that when we have a future episode about protecting yourself. So
yes.
Awesome.
Fun facts.
So that's it for Clairsentience and Clairvoyance. Next time in part 2, we'll be talking about clairaudience and claircognizance. Clairaudience being clear hearing and claircognizance being clear knowing, as well as a couple additional clairs that are lesser known, but still very important and quite honestly awesome.
Yeah, and we would like to hear from you. And if you have any questions about these clairs, please email us at spiritualbasicspodcast@gmail.com. And we would be happy to answer your questions on air, because if you're asking it, somebody else out there is wondering it too. And that's what we're here to do, is answer your questions.
Awesome. And yeah, questions about this or anything actually having to do with anything spiritual, or if you have any suggestions about future programs, we would love to hear it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much. As always, Jen is such a delight. She's a delightful companion, isn't he? I love doing this show with her. She's fantastic.
Oh, you're so sweet.
All right. Well, have a great night, everybody. We look forward to seeing you and hearing you on future shows.
Bye, y'all.